go, the button went gray and then it went red. It says end stream, which I'm going to say means I'm live. That's great. Alright. Now, setting this whole thing up for my laptop, which is going really well. It's a completely new setup for me. I've never done a live stream using both computers before. So, I'm gonna assume that there are people watching. I saw the statistics for like 2 seconds, and there were 2 people watching, and that was like 5 minutes ago. I did post this in Trixel Creative, and in Little Big Planet Union, and in my own server, and on Twitter, so hopefully I get some people watching. But, you know, it doesn't really matter if you watch it live, because it's gonna go up as an actual video after I hit the button that makes it do that. So there's that. So, if you can't stay for the whole stream, of course you can rewatch it. And this time around, unlike the absolute idiot I used to be, I actually clicked on the checkbox, setting up the live stream, that makes it so you can see the live chat when you're watching the recorded version of it. So that's working now. Anyway. I'm gonna be developing Socially Distant in this live stream, because that's really the only project I'm working on that I can actually live stream myself developing. Of course, I am a Restitch developer too, but of course, I can't exactly live stream that, so I'm not going to. But I am wearing the shirt, which is quite weird. Wearing a Restitch shirt developing Socially Distant. But it's okay, because if you go to the Trixel Creative team page, you see a Social Distant logo next to me. So there's that. Anyway, before I begin this, first of all, I want to know if you guys can even hear me. I feel like an idiot if I've been rambling on about absolutely nothing for the past 5 minutes and nobody can hear it. It's okay if people can hear me rambling on like an idiot, but if I'm rambling on like an idiot to a microphone that nobody can hear, that's a different story. Let me know how the audio quality is. If you can hear me, if you can hear the music in the background, if there's any adjustments I need to make, and then, you know, go from there. Because until then, all I have is guesswork. And how we're going to check the actual question to ensure that I do have chat open on my laptop, but I still cannot read it at all because of my blindness, and that is great. I see freaking fire in the chat. You can't hear. Turn down the music. Okay. I can do that. I can only hope that that's better. I can't exactly hear the difference.
Fighting battles we can't win. Can't you see?
This is my first time doing a live stream since joining Trixel. I think. I honestly can't remember. Ooh, we got a new person in the chat. Give me a moment while I read your name. Oh wait, no, it's the same person, that's just them, that one. Wait, no. We got freaking fire, and we've got Turacross321. Welcome to the stream, guys. I will have to apologize right now. I usually put this in the description, but because I created a new stream instead of using a template, it's not there. I am legally blind, so I have chat up in front of me, but I can't read it very quickly. if there was a way to have a screen reader going reading it for me, then that would be perfect, but as far as I'm aware, there isn't a way to do that with YouTube. So, occasionally I will stop what I'm doing and I will try to read chat, but I'll have to apologize because I can't be very reactive with it. I can't react in real time. I can only answer questions as I read them, and of course I read very slowly, so I have to apologize for that. But, the music is insanely loud. That's better now. Yeah. Alright. So if you guys say the music is sounding good and everything is working out, and I will try to figure out why the hell I can't see the bottom of the chat. There we go. And we'll get into this. So, another thing I will say as I load everything up here is, this is socially distant. I hope. I really hope this is socially distant. Okay, I see a NuGet folder, which I can pretty much guarantee is not in Restitch. And so is TextMesh Pro. That folder is not in there. They're a little more organized than I am. So yeah, this is socially distant. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. But what I was gonna say as I load this up here is I have two computers in front of me right now, and this is a very awkward setup. The only saving grace is that I have a height adjustable monitor. Also, occasionally, because Unity is Unity, I will be doing this, because Unity Hub has a light theme. And if I did not turn on inverted colors, there was a chance that I could have misread this and thought that socially distant said Restitch, because it has a tendency to put Restitch before socially distant, and I almost loaded the wrong project. That would have been disastrous. I have a very weird setup right now. Basically, the way this all works is I have my keyboard and mouse on a flimsy keyboard tray, and above that I have my laptop, which is where the chat is, and then I have my monitor adjusted to the highest height level it can go, so that I can fit my laptop underneath it on my desk. And I have to look up to see my Unity right now. That is not exactly ergonomic, I know, but it's the best I can do right now. It also means that I have to adjust my hands weirdly if I want to access my Stream Deck or my keyboard, which is great, but we'll work through it. Anyway, so what we're looking at right now is, of course, the Unity editor, because ever since joining Trixel, I never want to develop my own game engine again. So that's one of the big updates of Socially Distant, is it is now written in Unity. Now, if I click on it, it's going to automatically go into game view, and you can see that this is the desktop interface of Socially Distant. So, if you don't know what Socially Distant is, it's a hacking game, for one, and it's a game I'm working on that is based around the pandemic, sort of. A pandemic, like the one in 2020. I'm not going to be able to do a full pitch for this game on stream. I'm in programmer mode right now. But yeah, we have quite a lot going on here so far, but it's nowhere near finished. It's nowhere near as playable as it used to be in the old engine. But if I launch the game, I can at least show you a bit about it. So, also another thing, I will be occasionally zooming into the screen, because again, I'm sitting very far away from my monitor, and even if I weren't, I'm blind, so. At the top here, we have our status bar, and as you can see, it does say that it is Wednesday, January 1st, 2020 at 7:03 AM, I think, 7:04. That is actually important for gameplay, eventually, but that is the in-game time. Over here, this system panel, at least I think that's what I called it, yeah, This is going to be for system logs and other important status information, but it's not implemented yet. Below that we have the social panel, which is going to be, well, it's already implemented, but there's nothing that uses it yet. But this is going to be like a Twitter feed, but in-game. And it's going to be kind of like Surfer in Cities Skylines if you've played that, but it's going to be more important to the storyline. The social screen is going to reflect what you're doing as a player, and it's also going to give you information about what you need to be doing, what you need to be looking out for, and stuff like that. So that's the social screen. Next to that we have the display screen, which is for things you're working on that are graphical. So if you're reading an email, it'll show up in here. If you're doing a chat, it'll show up in here. If you're looking at a text document, or a website, or a file manager, it'll all be in the display panel, kind of like Hacknet. And then above that is the map, which is, when you're not hacking a network, this is going to be a map of the in-game city, so you can see different businesses and websites and homes and stuff like that. And then when you are hacking a network, it's going to be a map of the building you're actually hacking. But it is also not yet implemented. And then, last but not least, we have the terminals, which is plural, because there can be multiple terminals. But right now there is none loaded, because I'm in the middle of refactoring the game, and I'm getting it ready for a main menu, and being able to load up a save file and things like that. So I've completely broken the player system right now, so we need to fix that. That's going to be something we do in this live stream. But the terminal is something that you definitely need to know. Don't expect to need to learn Linux. It is going to be very Linux-y in how it works, but it's going to be Linux-y in the sense that it teaches you Linux, not that you need to know Linux. So don't go into socially distant thinking that you need to know how to hack. That's not what we're doing. But you might learn a thing or two about using Linux when you use social distance. That's interesting. Anyway, that's a quick tour of the desktop interface of the game. We need to get that terminal working, because I really want to show you guys the terminal, and I really want to get the player manager working. But if we look in the console, you can see the game starting up, and it is working fine. There's a bunch of warnings, but other than that, it's booting up fine. The reason the terminal doesn't work right now is because there's actually no code running to spawn the terminal in. If I go into the player object right here, which is what used to spawn in the terminal, there are a lot of scripts here that just cannot be found. They're not in the game anymore. And these are all the scripts that are responsible for spawning the terminal. So that's great. I'm gonna have to remove these. So I'm gonna do that, starting off here. And again, I really have to apologize for the flashing screen occasionally, because I don't know what Unity was thinking when they added a dark theme and then didn't skin the right-click menus. Except in places where they did skin the context menus. Like if I go... let's try to find something. If I go into mandatory scripts, and then we'll go Settings Manager. If I go in here, this menu is a dark theme, but this one isn't. Anyway, small little nitpick about Unity. Anyway, drink some coffee, and then we'll see if we can get that terminal working. By drink some coffee, I mean drink a lot of coffee, because I just chugged half the freaking cup there. Oh my god. But, that's great. Anyway. Society. Yes, it is called the Society panel. I misread it as the Social panel, but it is in fact called the Society panel. Glad to hear the audio's better. Anyway, so the thing with the player is, I know how to get it working, but it's really a pain in the butt. See, what we have here is we have the core, which is, you know, the core code base of the game. And inside the core, we have the game state, which is the society. The society is what's responsible for spawning the player. The problem is there's no way for the rest of the game currently to know when the player is ready, and the player, everything else in the game is spawned by a coroutine. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, this one right here. Initialize Simulation. What this goes ahead and does is it grabs the player data and everything from the save file, and it goes ahead and starts spawning in ISP nodes and local area network nodes and device nodes and linking them all together with routers and everything to create an in-game internet. And ideally right here, this is where IP addresses would be assigned and domain names and all that stuff for the networking simulation. Now, part of that is, in fact, the player. The player needs a LAN, the player needs an ISP, and the player needs a local device. Otherwise, they can't use the networking simulation in the game. They can't be connected to the internet. That's not great, given this is a hacking game. So what we actually need is somehow a way to know when this is all ready. When this is all ready, we can just go ahead and, you know, grab a context for the player and get them a terminal and, you know, get the shell ready. So the best way to do that, I've experimented with this already, but I did revert the command. The best way to do that is to create an event. And that event, all it's going to do is it's going to give you a context that has the player stuff. So we're going to start with that. So we're going to create a new public event, and the event is going to be of type action. And it's actually going to take one parameter, which in C#, if you want to create an event that takes parameters, you place those parameter types inside of these angle brackets. And I'm going to have it take a single context. And then I'm going to call this event player ready. Now, what is a context, you might ask? Well, a context is really just an agent and a local device. The agent is a person. Think in the Matrix, how every person and everything is an agent. Kind of like that. But also kind of like City Skylines, in the sense that every pedestrian and every car is an agent. It's the same deal in Socially Distant. Every person you interact with in the game is considered an agent. A local device is a computer. So my laptop would be a local device. My game dev workstation, my phone, all that stuff would be local devices in Socially Distant. And all a context is a link to an agent and a local device, so that in-game features can access that data. And a player context comes from the society spawning a context in and telling it to possess a player, which is actually what it does by default. When you create a context, by default, it is a player context. And then the game can later on go in and possess a different NPC or a different local device, and that's how the hacking system is going to work. So if you hack into a device, you get a new context for that device, and you're able to do whatever the hack allows you to do. Of course, I'm being very abstract about that because it's not implemented yet, but all we really need to do is create that context, and then send it out for the event. So let's do that. Now the event is going to be fired right after we set has initialized already, or yeah, has initialized already to true. So we're going to create that context. Var cpx equals new context. And the context by default is going to be a player context, so we don't need to do anything, we just need to pass it this, which is the society. And then we're going to do player ready. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do at all. Player ready. Invoke. .tx. Right. Now, if you don't know C#, this little question mark here means that basically what this means is it's going to look at the player ready variable, which is an event of type action, and it's going to say, if this variable is not null, then call this method on this variable, which in this case means that if this event is not null, invoke it with this parameter. So that's pretty neat. In the old days, we actually needed to do the null check with an if statement and then call the method, and that's ugly. This is a fast way to do it. Anyway, we have that event set up, so let's go ahead. Actually, let's go ahead and log that we've actually done that. So debug.log, creating player context. And that way we'll be able to see that in the console inside Unity. So let's first of all clear the console. And then we'll go ahead and play. And we'll watch the console, and as you can see, it is creating a player context. Okay, great. We have a player context. Next, what we need to do is get this whole player thing to actually go ahead and create a terminal. Now, you might be tempted, if you're developing Socially Distant, to go here and add a component, type in the name of a script. Player terminal spawner, and then you'll hit create script. What I'm going to tell you right now as the lead developer, don't ever do that. Please, don't. Instead, do it from your IDE. So instead, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go into the scripts folder here. We'll create a new folder. We will go ahead and we will call that folder, once I find the dialog box, there it is, we're going to call it player. And now it's going to ask you if you want to add it to source control. I don't want to. My general rule is not to commit to source control until my thing is actually working the way I want it to. I do the same thing in Restitched when I work on a feature. I try to at least get that feature working before I start committing things. That way if I screw something up dastardly, I can hit one command in the command line and it'll clear everything I did. So that's a neat little trick. Anyway, we're going to create a new class inside player. And we are going to call it player terminal spawner. Right. Now, for some reason, my version of Rider takes a little bit of time to load whenever I create a new file for the first time, but that shouldn't happen for the rest of the stream, I hope. Anyway, we're going to make that inherit from mono behavior. And now, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and set up our dependencies. What gameplay systems do we need to access in order to get this player to spawn its terminal in? Well, first of all, we're going to need the society, because the society is what fires off that event saying, hey, your player is ready. So we're going to create that variable. Private society. We live in a society, and it's private. Now, except this is not the way to do that. You might be inclined to do this because in normal C# you might just create a constructor, public player terminal spawner, and then you'll take in a reference to society, right? And then you'll go ahead and do this .society equals society, but you can't do that in Unity. With a mono behavior. You can't, because mono behaviors don't have a constructor that you can just, add. You can't just do this and expect the Unity editor to be happy with you. So how do we get this society in? Well, you might be inclined to think, well, the next best thing is to create a singleton. We only need one society, so why not have private static society instance, and then do public static society instance get if instance equals null, instance equals new, society. Then, you know, first of all, we can't do this because it takes in parameters. That's something to know. But assuming that we could just return instance. And if it's null, it'll create a new instance. This is a singleton in C#, and I hate them. I hate them. I really hate them. Alright? Now this is something I learned from Pixel Creative. I'm telling you that right now. My hatred for singletons comes straight from Restitch, because you know what? They're banned. And, yeah, they're banned in the codebase, and when I first joined, I asked, why are singletons banned? And then I got an explanation of why singletons are banned. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then I started looking into singletons online and doing my research, because that's what I do. And then I started learning even more about why singletons are bad in Unity, and I can understand why they're banned in Restitch, and I'm banning them in my own project. So we're not allowed to use singletons. If I catch anyone using a singleton in Socially Distant, whether it be in-game or with a mod, I will decompile your mod, and I will remove the singleton, and I will replace the release of your mod with one that doesn't use the singleton. Anyway, the right way to do this, because I understand if singletons are banned, how are we supposed to have something like a mono behavior that's globally accessible? Short answer, you don't. Long answer is you start to learn about Bootstrap scripts and holders and how to use those. So this is something I've adopted for Socially Distant. The way this works is, first of all, we remove the reference to society. We never have a direct reference to a gameplay system, like society, like settings manager, or anything like that. Instead, what we do is we create a reference to another class that is in the file, or in the core folder, society holder. And what this is a scriptable holder containing a society. What's a scriptable holder? A scriptable holder, or a scriptable, I can't talk. A scriptable holder is a scriptable object that contains a reference, that holds a reference to the relevant gameplay system in its value property. And then, what we simply do is we create a scriptable object of type, for example, society holder. And then we have a society scriptable object. We've turned a plain old class into a scriptable object. And the way we get that scriptable object to contain the reference that we need is we use a Bootstrap script, Bootstrap script. I have a speech impediment. A Bootstrap script is a mono behavior that you attach to a gameplay object, and it contains a reference to that holder, and any dependencies that the system contained in that folder has. So the society requires the network simulation. So we have a reference to the network simulation holder, so that we can, get access to the network simulation. And then all we do is we log that, hey, we're setting up the society, and we go ahead and create a new instance of society and assign it to the value property on the holder. Now, you can see here that I'm taking in a reference to network simulation holder, and this is going to give you an idea of how this is going to work. Because if I go into the networking code, which, to be clear, networking as in the in-game internet simulation, not multiplayer. There is not going to be multiplayer in this game at this time. But we do have a network system, if I can find it. Actually, no, this is the core part of the networking, so this is things like the packet data and everything like that, and all the nodes. So this is not where we want to be. This is where we want to be. We have the network simulation, right? This is the actual gameplay system. It's mono behavior this time around because it does need to update. But still, it's the same deal. We have a network simulation holder. It's a scriptable holder. Once it loads up here. Yeah, it's a scriptable holder containing a network simulation. And we have a network bootstrap. or a network simulation bootstrap, or a simulation bootstrap. Okay. The simulation bootstrap has no dependencies, so it just takes in that holder and it creates the network simulation. So, all this in a nutshell. I've just explained the entire gameplay system architecture of Socially Distant. And it is quite handy, because it allows us to have singletons without all the bad parts of singletons in Unity. And it's great, I love it. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to use that entire way of architecting the game to go ahead and get access to our society from within the player terminal spawner. So we're going to create a new reference to Society Holder called Society Holder. Now, it needs to be private because that's a coding convention, but private variables cannot be edited within the Unity inspector. To make them editable, you need to annotate them with a serialized field. Another convention for these system variables are to mark them as not null, which will let the JetBrains IDE know that this should not be null, and it is actually yelling at me. I actually might remove that coding convention because they're not generally going to be null, but they will start out as null, and that's complaining about it. Anyway, we're going to create a new method here, void awake, and this is a Unity event, so just typing in void awake and hitting tab was enough for JetBrains Writer to autocomplete it into a Unity event. And all we need to do is assert that the society system is not null, or rather that the holder is not null, and all we need to do, I believe, is to go ahead and say, okay, society holder dot value dot player ready. We'll create a new event, and this is where we're going to spawn the terminal. And for now, we're just going to log to the console that we're spawning a terminal. Spawning the login now. Wait for Unity to recompile it. Now, inside of our player script, or player object here, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add a new component. Player terminal spawner. And right here, you're going to see that it requires a society holder. And Tobias SN has just commented in the chat. To socially distant source code leak moment. Yeah, I didn't sign an NDA. This isn't Trixel Creative. I don't have to worry about leaking the source code. Besides, I wrote the source code. Anyway, we're gonna assign this reference here. Society holder is going to be a society holder scriptable object. And with that said, we're gonna drink some coffee because my coffee's getting cold. I'm gonna chug the entire damn thing. We programmers drink a lot of coffee. Welcome Inky Dink to the chat. I see eyeballs. Oh, I see. I haven't seen you in a while, so, hi, welcome. Welcome to the stream. We're working on Socially Distant right now. And what I'm about to do in Socially Distant is test out to make sure that the player terminal spawner has access to society, because this might actually break. Or... wait, did I get an assertion? No, I I didn't get an assertion, but I did get a null reference exception. Why did I get a null reference exception? That is because society holder's value has not been instantiated yet by the game. This won't happen when we have a main menu. It really won't. But because we don't have a main menu yet, we have to delay this into void start. I don't know how to make it so that the society becomes one of the first things to initialize, and then have the player only initialize after the society. But unfortunately, yeah, that's great. Luckily though, because it's a coroutine running a coroutine starting to oh god, what the hell, I'm still playing the game. Because there's a coroutine running the simulation and getting it all bootstrapped, shouldn't have to worry about a race condition of the society calling start before the player gets to call start. So let's see if that's actually the case. Yep, spawning the login hell. Okay, so that got logged to the console. That means we have a context at this point. So then, how do we spawn in a terminal? That's an actual legitimate question. I can't remember. So we'll have to figure that out. The terminal and everything is something that was done before the whole, scriptable holder thing was implemented. Because of that, we're gonna have this weird situation where somehow we need to talk to the shell system. Which the shell system is what actually provides the command line for the terminal, but along with that we also need to create a terminal. That's a problem. Now, how do we create a terminal in the actual user interface? Well, that's what I'm about to figure out. We're gonna go into tile layout, and then we're gonna go main area, bottom area, and then I'm gonna look at terminals and see what scripts are on the terminals. Instantiate terminal prefab. Yeah, I know, that's what it does internally, but I'm trying to figure out how to access the actual script that does that. Because I broke it. We have terminals tabber script. I think this might actually handle all of it on its own. Edit script, let's see how it works. So it has a reference to client area, which is for the window tile, that's good. First of all, this is a coding convention violation. That's how that should be. So it takes in console element, which is the prefab. Yeah. We have the terminal set, which is an older way of doing it. I'm gonna have to revamp this later on. Ooh, this stuff must get component in children. There's the client area. That's how it gets that. Fun fact. Actually, no. Should I actually say that fun fact? Let's just say must get component is not a part of Unity by default. Just say that much. Tobias, buddy, you gotta work on your text walls. This is gonna take me a while to read. Yeah, I guess you could file a takedown if I showed your code in the game, but also, I'm the lead developer. So I can step over that, because you know that the entire team owns the code, including me. Anyway, let's see. Detected override I enumerable tab info get tabs. What? What? How does this even work? I have no idea what the hell I was. Oh. Oh. I get it now. This method is not being called by anything. It was likely being called by the player. Okay. Player terminal spawner. I'm going to use a little bit of the old must-get component magic to get that component. I'm eventually going to turn this into a workspace manager instead of a player manager. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and do this. Must get component in children out terminals, or yeah, terminals. Now, we have terminals, so now what we should be able to do is go ahead and create a context, or a terminal context, I should say, from the agent context. So let's do that. Var terminal context equals new terminal context. Oh no. How do I create a terminal context? Fuck. Terminals.create terminal, what does that take? It creates terminal context. Okay. So then what's terminal context? How do I create it? It is an abstract class, which means that we need to create it. Okay, so this is problematic. This means we're gonna have to write a terminal context, and that's a pain in the ass. Moment to read the chat. Tobias says he wishes that there was that Unity had an attribute that you could put on a field to populate that field with a component on the game object, so you don't have to, or so you don't end up in get component hell. Now, I sort of disagree. I do agree that get component hell is annoying. But I also disagree with the idea of automatically having it populate the component with an attribute, because effectively what you are doing is a must-get component inside of your awake method in the case of socially distant. You're basically doing that, but instead of doing it explicitly, you're doing it implicitly, which means the editor is doing it for you, which means that there's no transparent way to know that this class needs that object. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't tend to pay much attention to the attributes or give them much thought, unless I'm actually writing them, because they're, I mean, I just don't. And when I look in the awake method here, I can clearly see, okay, well this must get a component on the children, and I'm gonna know immediately that this needs to get that component, otherwise it's gonna assert, or rather it's gonna call must get component in children in a different way, and then that's gonna call another nested must get component. Oh god. And then it's going to eventually assert. But yeah, I would rather explicitly write out, okay, this script needs this component, it needs this component in its immediate children, or it needs this component from somewhere, and if it's not gonna get that component, just crash. I'd rather not do that kind of stuff implicitly with an attribute. It's just more clear what the code is doing at a glance if you do it explicitly like this. And even then, if a component must be referenced by another component, must get component, if it can't find the component you need, it's gonna crash, it's gonna throw an error, it's going to assert, and that's gonna stop executing the script entirely, so you will know if something fucked up. Your game won't work. And it'll tell you exactly what happened. It'll tell you, hey, I couldn't get this component, I'm gonna crash now. So, yeah. But anyway. What we need to do is we need to create a terminal context for the player. Now, I'm gonna do this as a private class inside of the player script. The reason for that is I don't want any random-ass Tom, Harry, or Tim creating a freaking player context. And you know, hijacking the shell. I don't want that happening. So I want it to be only creatable by my own code. So, I'm going to create a new private class, player terminal context, and I'm going to inherit from terminal context. Now, if I wanted to get this out of being a nested class, I could literally make it an internal class, and then nothing outside of the core code base could create it. But I'll be honest, I'm lazy. That's why I use must get component. Anyway, oh god. So we've got a crap ton of shit we need to override. Okay, great. We need an iMailbox of some sort. So how are we gonna do that? Well, also we need an iTab completion source. I think there's an upper tab completion source somewhere. We need a network interface. That's probably pretty easy to retrieve. We need a file system, not exactly as trivial. You know what? I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to make this an internal class instead, because that means I can actually move it into its own file, and then it's easier to look at the file specifically. And it's going to yell at us because you can't have a private class outside of a parent class, because then nothing can create it. Toya says, that being said, must get component / try get component are much better than regular get component. Yeah, I agree. I try get component is good because you know, you might not actually need get component, and you might want to handle things a little differently if you can't get that component. And I don't like people who rely on try catch blocks as a conditional. I don't like exceptions being a conditional. Exceptions should be an error. Always. They should not be conditional. you should not try something and then if something crashes in that try block, then you know, have a different behavior. You should try something. If it crashes, handle the error. Instead of just, you know, having the debugger scream at you or having a Windows error prompt come up. And then handle the error accordingly. And then, you know, move on with your day. Whether that be show an error message to the user or run some sort of fallback code, but I don't like the idea of, okay, let's try to get this value here, and if it's null, it's going to throw a null reference exception. Okay, we'll catch that null reference exception and go, okay, we don't have the object. Find a different way to get that, or find a different way to accomplish that, because using an exception as a conditional is just, ugh, no, don't write Philip Adams code. I made this class public because I got distracted. I wanted it to be internal. There we go. But what we're going to do is we're going to make this player terminal context just take in a context. So what we're going to do is we're going to do terminals.create terminal, and we don't need to worry about it returning a value. It's going to be void. And all this is going to be is new player terminal context taking in CTX, and it's going to be a login shell, because when we implement the exit command in multiple terminals, this is going to prevent you from closing this terminal. So there's that. Now we're going to take this class and we're going to right click it and we're going to move it into its own class, or into its own file. And we're going to create that constructor. Public player terminal context, and it's going to take in a context CTX. Private context. Context is going to be what we store the variable in. Now I'm going to assert that this value is not null, and then we're going to store it in context. Despite what your IDE will tell you, using this dot whatever is actually a convention in Socially Distant, because it helps you distinguish between local variables and class variables. I don't care that Ryder is graying that out saying you don't need the this or the this qualifier. Use the this qualifier. Ignore your IDE. Anyway, now we need to start implementing all of these methods, because right now they all return null, and that's not great. I mean, we need a mailbox context, or do we? Do we really need a mailbox context? Actually, no, we don't. So we're not going to give it a mailbox context. Likewise, we do need the file system, and we do need the network manager, and we do need the tab completion source. But we don't need the mailbox context, because email is not going to be done through the terminal. That was a holdover from before I had access to Unity, or when I was using Thundershock. That was how I would do it. I would use terminal contexts for graphical applications, and just, no, don't. We're not going to do that. So let's set up this whole tab completion source thingy, because it's kind of important. To be honest though, I don't think we have a tab completion source, do we? Yeah, I don't remember if we have a tab completion source. Let's just try and create one. I know completions are implemented in the game, but I don't know if we have... if I ever made an actual discrete class for it. I can't remember. Genuinely can't remember. What I will do though is I will use the player terminal script as a tab completion source. We're gonna rename that class, so don't give the variable name any thought. Alright, and then we're of course going to assert the player. And of course, because that variable is red on here, we're going to add the variable. There we go. And this tab completion source is now going to be a player. Now that's going to go red on us because we haven't implemented that interface on the player script. Let's implement that interface on the player script. This is strange. I don't see any way. How would you actually add completions? Maybe it's not a good idea to make this the tab compilation source. How did I do it the last time? How did I do the tab completion stuff before doing the society refactor? Can't remember. Let's look at the tab completion interface and see what implements it. Surely there's gotta be something that implements it. So, I see 3 exposing APIs. 4 usages, but no implementers. I need to look at the shell system to figure out how it submits completions in the first place, because that's what the shell system is supposed to do. It's one of the things it handles. Tobias says that's the power of version control. Indeed. Alright, try not to type in the other repository here. Now you guys get to see the GitHub repository that nobody gets to see. unless they're a developer, like Tobias or me. There. We have Player Terminal Manager. Player state create terminal context. That's what does it. Okay, GitHub, take me to the definition. Okay, player tab completion source, I tab completion source. I contextual completions. Or I contextual completion store. Okay, so that's how it does it. Alright, I've got this figured out now, so we're actually gonna go ahead and create a new mono behavior for the player to attach to it. And that's going to be solely responsible for tab completions. So, player terminal spawner. Above that, we're going to create a new class. Player completions. Mono behavior. And we're going to move this into its own class, or into its own file. And then we're going to use a little bit of the old must-get component magic here to get the reference to it. Now, instead of doing a must-get component in children, we don't need to look throughout the entire hierarchy, we just need it in this game object. Alright. Now we're going to make this inherit from the two interfaces. I tab completion source and I contextual completions. And we're going to implement this interface. And that implements both of them. And actually what I could have done is I could have literally Control-C, Control-V from GitHub, because that's going to give me the exact implementation I need. If I can find a class that is just literally looking at it, where did it go? There it is. I guess this is a sign that the terminal code for Socially Distant is in need of some refactoring eventually, because if I could not figure that out intuitively, that's not great, considering I wrote it. Anyway, this is problematic. Do we actually need access to the player context? We don't. don't need access to any of that. So why is it holding a reference? Why was this ever holding a reference to player terminal context? Ugh. Alright, so we have player completions. Now all we need to do is when we create this context here, instead of it giving it this, or straight up giving it the context for the player, we're also going to give it completions. Right, and then we're gonna have to modify the constructor a little bit, that's okay. So we're gonna take in player completions. Right, so we're going to first assert completions. That makes sure that we don't get a null value, and this dot underscore completions equals completions. And then we'll go ahead and give this property access to that completion variable. And then we can go into the Unity editor and make sure that we add that class, or that component, to the player. Or we can have a build error, that works too. What happened? Y'all never told me what happened. What happened? Why is it forked? What? I don't see anything wrong with this code. I think Unity is just a little drunk. Oh. It's never a good sign when I see neofetch. Never a good sign when I see neofetch's error, or neofetch error out. But I know what happened. It's because we removed access to the mailbox, and that's okay, that was temporary. Tobias has gone to enter a state of low consciousness. That took me a while to read. Way too long to read. Anyway. So now, we have the player terminal completions compiling, so we're going to go ahead and add those completions, or add the completions script to the player, and then because I want the player to actually have access to it when it spawns in the terminal, we're going to move it up. There we go. And the next thing we need to do is get that network interface, and that can be retrieved using the context. Using the society context, that is. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, under player terminal context, we have access to our to our agent and our local device. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, first of all, we're going to make sure So username, we can get that from the agent. So context.agent.user.shell username. The full name, or rather the host name, can be retrieved from the local device. So context.device, or it'll be local device. Name. Maybe? I don't think that's gonna be the host name, but we'll see. Now, the current directory is a little bit complicated. We're gonna start the user off in the root directory, and then they can, you know, go from there. Whoops. Was that meant to be an internal set? I don't know. Nope, that was meant to be a protected set. There we go. Home directory. Now that is a little bit annoying. Home is going to be the variable we store that in. And for now, home is going to be slash. Later on, we will set that to be /home/ and then the username. But for now, it's stuck that way. Now, we still have two dependency variables to satisfy. We need to create the file system, and we need to create the network interface. Now, the network interface, like I said, can be retrieved from the society. Well, it can't right now, but it will be. So, context.network interface. We're going to define that property because I know exactly how to get the interface. Public network interface is going to be underscore society dot get device interface local device. Now we're going to define that method. I can hear the music in the background, and I have a feeling that if I were monetized, I would be demonetized. Anyway, I'm not monetized, so I don't care. Public network interface, get device interface, local device. First of all, we're going to assert that we have initialized. And then we're going to return network simulation.value .get device interface device. So we're going up the chain in the command or chain of command of socially distant. We're delving lower and lower and lower into the game's APIs, and this is how I develop. It's weird, I know, but we're about to have a network interface. So we have access to the network simulation now, so what we're going to go ahead and do is define that network interface method. Ignore all of the Dijkstra shortest path stuff, it's really convoluted and annoying. Public network interface, get device interface, local device, and from this point, we are just looking at a hash map. The hash map is up the top of this file, and it contains a map of local device IDs to network interfaces. So, dictionary of GUID to network interface, that's what we want. Return interfaces device.id. Now that's going to throw a key not found exception if we're not initialized yet, and that's okay because we asserted that beforehand. So this is guaranteed to work. If you have a local device reference and you call this method, it is guaranteed to work. Sort of. It will break if you bypass society, but don't bypass society and it won't break. Simple as that. Anyway, we have a network interface. Now, in terms of the file system, it's not so simple. We can't just walk up the society API and get a network or we can't just walk up the society API and get a file system. That's not a thing you can do. The reason for that is the file system is more of a physical thing. It's actually part of your computer, part of your save file. So we need some way to access a file system from the save file. We need some way to manage the file system. So we need a way to... we need a file system is what we need. So we're actually going to create one in the core. We're going to create a Bootstrap script, we're going to create a holder, and we're going to create a file system manager. And we're going to get that working in the game. Luckily, I've already created a file system folder here inside of the core, but you can see that we have a real directory, we have a node, we have rootfs, we have, or no, not, yeah, real file, we have the actual file system API, we have a dev node, and we have a device root node, but we're going to create some more things in here. First of all, we're going to create the file manager. The file manager is going to be a way for us to, get access to the file system. So this is going to be a blank class for now, but what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to create a file manager folder. It's going to be a scriptable folder containing a file manager. We're going to move that into its own class, otherwise, or into its own file, otherwise Unity gets really, really mad at you when you try to add editor types into files with other classes in them. It really doesn't like you doing that. And we're going to annotate this scriptable object with a create asset menu attribute, and the menu name is going to be holders file manager. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is, now that we have that scriptable holder in place, we're going to go into Unity, and inside of the core, in that same directory, we're going to create that file system holder. That is, if I can find it. I panicked for a second, thinking that I was looking at the restitched codebase, but then I realized I've been doing this entire stream doing socially distant work, and I've already used Unity in this stream. There's no possible way I'm looking at restitched right now. Anyway, we're going to create a new folder, and there's going to be a file manager. Oh my god, this is a mess. That's okay. Next, we need to create the Bootstrap script. That is the actual thing that goes ahead and creates the file manager, or file system manager. So let's do that. We're going to create a new class. file manager Bootstrap. We're going to move it into its own file. And you'll understand the reason why I created that scriptable object first before doing this very soon. Anyway, we're gonna create a new variable of type file manager holder. File manager. We're gonna annotate it as not null, serialized field. And then we're gonna create a new await method. And then we're going to assert the variable is not null. We're gonna log that we're starting up the file manager. And then we're going to go ahead and do file manager value equals new file manager. Now this is going to actually have some dependencies. We're going to need to know a few things about the game. We're going to need to know its settings stuff. It's going to need yeah, we're going to need access to the game's data directory for one. That's not too annoying. We can get the data directory from settings manager. Which, you guessed it, is another holder. Alright, so settings manager is now being passed along to the file manager, and that's good because that'll give us access to the game's data directory. And now we're going to create that constructor. Store a reference to the settings manager holder. And we're good to go. So, now we need to create that actual Bootstrap script object in Unity, so we're going to go ahead. This is a mandatory script, so we're going to create it inside the mandatory scripts folder here. Create empty. We're going to name it File Manager, and I'm going to move it towards the top, just below Settings Manager. That way I know that it is in fact supposed to load after the File Manager, but the rest of this stuff, or after the Settings Manager, but the rest of this stuff doesn't need to load first. So under File Manager, we're going to add a component. File Manager Bootstrap. Or we're going to have a compilation error. Why did it error out this time? What? Did I create a public method outside of a class? That's exactly what, or inside, I created a public method inside of a method. This isn't JavaScript, you can't do that. Okay, my dumbassery aside, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add that component. So file manager holder, and then we're going to fill in its dependencies. Give it the file manager holder, and the settings manager. And then now we have access to the file system APIs that we're about to write. So now that we have access to all of that, what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm trying to think in my head. So we're going to need to keep a reference to the player file system. because that's going to be accessed multiple times, but we also need to not have it, Yeah, see, what we need to actually do is make sure that it gets that all the file systems get destroyed whenever we leave the scene or stop playing the game or something like that, because I'll figure that out later. All we really need right now is just a reference to the player FS. Alright, so get player file system. This method is going to be called when we want to retrieve the player file system. It can be called by a context, it can be called from a graphical application, it can be called anywhere that has access to file manager. What this will do is if the file system has not been created yet, it will create it. If not, it will just return that file system. So we're going to start out by having it create the player FS. Pretty simple. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is if player FS is null, then we need to create the file system. So how are we going to do this? Well, a few basic things to be known here. Actually, no. Scratch that. We're not going to have a distinction between the player and the not player file system. We're going to have a simple device file system. We're going to create a hash map. The solution to all your problems in programming is a hash map. This is going to be a dictionary of GUIDs to file systems. And that GUID is going to be a local device IP, or local device ID. Get device file system, and it's going to take any local device. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if file systems try get value device.id out var fs, then return the fs. And then var new fs equals new var root node, equals new root device root node. Ooh, that class doesn't exist. That's because I probably commented it out. Yes, I did. Why? Now, the reason I commented this out is because it's called the player root device, or root node, and we don't want that. And we want it to be a device root node, and we don't want it to have access to a player state that no longer exists. We want it to have access to a local device. So I need to update this freaking constructor here to be a device root node. And it's going to take any local device, and instead of asserting on the player state, which no longer exists, we're going to assert on the device. We're going to set this dot local device to be device. And there we go. Now also, we're gonna have this have a reference to the file manager. variable fman. Alright, so now we have a reference to file manager, and the reason we need that is so that I can actually get access to the real-life data directory where the file manager is going to store all of its data. And how is that going to work? That's going to be done here, so... Get file data path for the local device. So that'll change depending on if it's the player or an NPC. And that's important. So now that we have that path, which we're going to set up a method to retrieve that path, we have a complete file system. So the method that's going to retrieve that path is going to be quite simple. We're going to just have it return a string, and we're going to have it be get device data path. Take in a local device, and realize that we're not calling that method properly. Alright, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna check if we're gonna get the name of the device, so var device folder name equals device.isPlayer. If that's true, we're just gonna say player. Otherwise, we're gonna say device.name. Now, we're also going to create a fallback. If we end up getting a blank device folder name, we're going to use its device ID. Because you need a not blank string in order for this to work. You just need to. You just need an actual name. So if... can't type today. If the device folder name is null or whitespace, which effectively means that it's blank, it's going to become the device's ID. So this is going to create a scenario where if the device is the player, then the folder is going to be called player, no matter what. That's good. That means that if you end up having a different device ID for your player device, you don't end up losing all of your, locally stored documents in the game. If it's an NPC, and it has a name, which I think most likely will, then you'll get a folder named after that NPC's computer. And then if it's not an NPC, if it doesn't have a name, and if it's not a player, it's going to give you the device ID. So no matter what, we will have a path here. Now, the next thing we need to do is take this name and we need to make it into a file system path. And I mean that on the real world. So the way we're going to do that is first we're going to get the settings path. Which can be retrieved by getting settings.value.gameDataPath. And then we're going to get the device path, which is going to be path.combine settings path. Now eventually it won't be the settings path, it'll be the save path, but we don't have a save system yet, so we're gonna use the settings path for now. Devices. device folder name. And then we're going to create this directory if it doesn't exist. And then we're going to return it. So now we have access to the file system. So we're going to jump back into the terminal context, and what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to make the terminal context take in a player file system. Now, how is that going to work? We're just going to take in the file system. Just take in a reference. Assert the FS. I'm gonna make sure my laptop doesn't fall asleep, and then we're gonna set underscore FS equal FS. I broke my own coding convention there. Oh well. And then file system, the property is going to return underscore FS. And then we've given the game access to a player file system. Now, how do we give the terminal context access to the player system? Or to the player file system? We're going to go into our spawner and make sure that we actually create a file system. And that means that our spawner is going to need access to the file manager APIs. So let's give it access. Alright, Filemaker Holder is now a thing that we can access. We're going to make sure that we assert it. Okay. Now, we're not done with Filemaker Holder. We actually need to fix an oversight. And that oversight is that I forgot to actually return the file system we created. So that's good to know. So our root node is going to be a new device root node, taking this and the device. I have to apologize if you hear a dog barking in the background. Hopefully the music is drowning it out. Anyway, we now have the root node, so we need to simply create a file system from that node. File system .create from node. If we pass that to root node, it's going to create a file system from that root node, and this is exactly how we did it in Thundershock. This is perfect. It works the exact way I need it to. Don't fix what ain't broken. We now have a file system, and all we're going to do is we're going to say file systems.add local device. Or no, we're going to do device.id new FS, or new file system, sorry. And we're going to return it. And now we have an API that lets us get a file system for a particular local device. So that's a feature we never had before. Previously, the file system directories were hard-coded, so that's good to know. But now it's as easy as we have a context. The context gives us the local device, so we can go ahead and say var file system equals FileManager.value.get file system, or yeah, get device file system. We're gonna pass it ctx.local device. Pretty freaking handy. And then we can pass fs into the new terminal context we create. And then we can go into Unity We can say hello to Brandon Davies, who just says :P. That's how I'm gonna read that out loud, and you can deal with it. Now, under File Manager, we're gonna go ahead and give it access to, or maybe we have access to it in File Manager. It's the player we want to give access to the File Manager. And for some reason, it is not making me give it access. Strange. I sense that there is a compile error lurking in the logs, and there is a compile error lurking in the logs. There's always a compile error. Always. Never fails. Never ever ever fails. Why is there always a freaking... Okay. This is just great. Alright, I'm done. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make sure that we... Okay. I'm dumb and forgot to override, or to replace a bunch of code. So our root equals that, and then we're gonna replace this all this file or player state stuff with root. We're almost at the point where I can show you guys the terminal and continue the tour that I was doing at the beginning of the stream. We are almost there. We're like one line of code from being there. 2 lines of code. Zero lines of code. Alright, make sure that compiles. It looks like it doesn't. Great. Okay. Freaking great. What is it complaining about now? Oh, you know what it is? I forgot to store the result of this method call into the root variable. Come on, compile. There we go, it compiled. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the player object here and make sure that the player has access to File Manager, which it will. And now we should be able to play the game. And not get a terminal. Why not? I don't see any errors. Except for missing component exception. It's a must get component that failed. Why did that fail? Player terminal spawner. Can I not use must get component in children to get a non-immediate component? I could have sworn you could do that with must get component in children. Could have sworn it would have walked through the tree. I guess it doesn't, because it looks like it's complaining about... Or no, it's not. It's complaining about player completions. Weird. Why is it complaining about that? I thought I added player completions. In fact, I know I added player completions. Because it's not there. What? Okay, what the hell? Well, if I didn't add it before, I've added it now. And we now have a terminal, except that the terminal says player at you. There's gotta be a better way to get the host name. Oh, that's right, NeoFetch crashes. That's strange, I forgot NeoFetch crashes. I don't know why NeoFetch crashes. I'm gonna fix NeoFetch's crashing, because I really don't want NeoFetch crashing. Why is it crashing? Customization system. Yeah, see, what happened here is customization system is now using the holder system, or the holder architecture, instead of the weird other way of doing things. We need to fix that. So I know how to fix that. All this needs to be is customization folder, and then where we go and access the customization system. Twice here, we're gonna add a dot value. And a dot value. Let's fix NeoFetch. Because I would consider that a very high priority bug right there, that NeoFetch crashes the game. That's not great, that is not ideal, that is not what I wanted to do. It is awful, it's horrible, it's cursed, it's traumatic, it is every negative adjective I can think of that NeoFetch doesn't work. Now where's the prefab for it? Just need to update that. There it is. So inside here we're going to give it access to the holder, and then we're going to be hunky-dory. And then you can see, once I run NeoFetch here, all of the information about the game systems and the player. So we can see that our username is player, and our name, or our host name is for some reason you instead of localhost, I don't know why. We can see that we're running socially distant 0.1 pre-alpha 1. That has not changed in a long time. It's actually better if I go into full screen and then read this off. Alright. The important thing here, though, is that we have a terminal. And so, yeah, we have a terminal, we have... we're running on Windows... I mean, we're not running on Windows 10, we're running on Windows 11, but as far as Unity is concerned, we're running on Windows 10, and I don't blame it, because they're basically the same operating system, it's just that one has a different desktop environment. Oh my god, I just started rambling about Windows! But yeah, you can see that we're running Unity 2020.3.4 at 1. We're running... we have... okay, so that's the uptime. Doesn't really matter. Packages are not yet implemented. You can see the system theme and all that. A lot of this isn't implemented yet, actually. But yeah, you can see that I have a Ryzen 7 3700X, and that I have an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060 that the game's running on, and that's actually useful to know what GPU the game's running on. For example, if you have a laptop and you're having performance issues, check NeoFetch. It'll tell you if you're running on dedicated graphics or integrated graphics. And that might be important to look into before filing a bug report to me that says the game is slow. And then it'll tell you the display mode, which is handy. I'm running it. Well, that's the internal Unity display mode. And it'll tell you the frame rate, and it'll tell you how much RAM you have and how much RAM the game is using. It's using 13... that don't seem right. I don't think it's using that little amount of RAM. But, you know... If it ever jumps above something insanely high, then, you know, there you go. Anyway, yeah, so that was pretty that was impressive. What the hell? Why was I saying impressive? That's not the word I wanted to say. I wanted to say that was pretty intensive to work on, but, you know, we got there in the end. This isn't like Thundershop where I had to debug a bunch of graphical issues or anything like that. It's pretty simple to work with, actually. And also, we have a debug menu that can let us test even more things. So, for example, I can open the game's local data folder, and I can see that there is now a devices folder, and a player folder in there, and we can see that there's nothing. However, if I go into the game here, get out of the debug menu, and I do a little bit of the old mkdir Richie. Why Richie? Nobody knows. And if I do that, then you can see there's now a Richie folder inside of the player folder. So that's the system we just created with our file system code. Likewise, we can use fortune typed into cowsay, and that's going to print out a message. But we can also go ahead and do fortune typed into cowsay, output it into fortunecow.txt, and it'll look like it did nothing, but thanks to our debug menu, we can go in and see that fortunecow.txt has text in it. What text does it have? Oh god. Don't tell me it... Wait, no? Okay, it didn't give the really NSFW debug one. Okay. There's a Vine sauce meme in here somewhere, and it's not suitable for a live stream. Anyway, so that's that. That's how that works. But yeah, we have our file system code. The only thing that's kind of wrong is our home directory, which... our home directory is /, so that's not great. We can fix that, though. First of all, we can wonder why it just heard a gunshot outside, and second of all, I can say, okay, we'll go into the code, and let's see how easy this is to fix. We have our player terminal context, and we know our username by that point, so we can go ahead and say that our home directory, that variable from before, is home / and then context, no, not completions, context, .agent, .shell username, or rather, instead of going through that directly, we can just say shell username, or username, there we go. And that's our home directory, and then we can say that our PWD is our home, or our CWD. And then, what we can do is we can say, okay, if fs.directory exists, home, we can do fs.createDirectory home, that's gonna force create the directory for us, and then we will have a home directory. Hopefully. Judging by the fact there's no terminal, I would say that I'm wrong. I hear Coven in the background. I like the Coven music. But directory not found exception. That indicates that we forgot to create the home directory itself, and that's dumb. Yeah, see, one difference between socially distant and your actual operating system is if a parent directory doesn't exist, you can't create a child directory in it. So that's a bug, and that's something we have to work around. There we go. My laptop is going to switch. Oops. Anyway, now what we should end up with is our home directory being /home/player. We can go up one directory and we can see that that's a folder that exists. We can see there's a home directory, there's the Richie directory, there's even a dev directory. And we can see that all of those directories, except for dev, are in the device data. So that's pretty similar to how Linux does it, actually. So, that's pretty neat. And in fact, I can go in and transfer my rootfs data. Not that there is any, but I can transfer the old save file over, and that would be fine. It would work, because there's nothing in the old save file, so I can delete it. Anyway, let's have a look at some more of what that debug menu can do. So this is the debug menu. This is part of the reason why I wanted to do the dev stream, because I was originally going to make a devlog video for this debug menu, but I decided that it's not too interesting for a devlog. So I might as well do it as part of a stream and force you guys to watch it in that live stream. So, this is the socially distant debug menu. Now, debug menus are kind of important for game development because there are certain features in games that take a lot of effort to actually, you know, get access to. Think of a game like Grand Theft Auto. If you want to test the final mission, you have to play all of the missions leading up to that final mission to unlock it. Unless you have a debug menu. Then you can go in and say, okay, well, I want to get access to that mission, so I don't care what my save file looks like, you're going to unlock that mission whether you like it or not, because I'm the developer and I said so. And socially distant is no different. We already used one of these options, which is open game data folder in File Explorer, which opens the game data folder in File Explorer, if you didn't know that. And that lets me look at things like the config file and the save file in a text editor or a hex editor. Likewise, we have Sound Player, which I'm going to pause the music for a sec. The Sound Player lets me play a sound effect that is loaded in the game. There's only one. But this is useful if I want to test, for example, the pitch and the volume and any other effects we have applied to the sound effect to make sure they work. Music is back. And then we have Change Terminal Palette, which if there were multiple terminal palettes, I could change one, even if it's not unlocked yet. So that's useful for when I start adding other palettes to the game. Society, game state, allows me to go in and I can, for example, clear the social feed. Right now there's nothing in the social feed, but if there was something in the social feed that I wanted to clear, I could clear the social feed. Likewise, in the corner here we have the date and time. saying that it's January 1st, 2020, I can go ahead and say, okay, well, I can enter any value between 1 and 365 in the debug menu, or 0 and 364, and that'll set my save file to the corresponding day in the year 2020. For example, if I wanted to go into December, all I would have to do is say, I don't know, I'm gonna have a wild guess and say that December would start on day 336. There are 30 days in a month, and there are 365 days in a year. 365 minus, 365 minus 30 would be 335. So this should put me in December the 2nd or the 3rd? I don't know. Anyway, let's hit apply. And you can see that we are in December 2nd, 2020 at 7 o'clock AM. So if I want to set the game to a different time period in the year 2020 to test some sort of time-based functionality, I can do that in the debug menu, but you can't in the normal game. So that's pretty interesting. Pretty handy. At least I think so. And then I can open up a dialog window, which right now there's only one. There's the settings window. And this is the menu that you guys do have access to. This is the in-game settings UI. So there's a little bit of stuff going on here. We have the graphics settings, which allows you to set your display mode and all that stuff. You know, everything that a normal game would let you customize. We can customize the shell experience by disabling or enabling different effects. Maybe they're tanking your performance, or you just flat out don't like them. For example, you could turn off the CRT Shadow Mask effect that currently isn't implemented, or the Bloom effect that currently isn't implemented, or the Frosted Glass effect that currently isn't implemented, or the translucent terminals that aren't currently implemented. Likewise, we have accessibility features. So I'm blind and I have to zoom into the screen, but I could also turn on large font, and then I would have a larger font, and then maybe not have to zoom into the screen so much. I can also turn on the high contrast terminal. If I want to review a theme that the community has created, and they've created a custom palette for it, I can override that palette and have a high contrast palette instead. And I can also disable transparent window backgrounds, so that would disable frosted glass entirely on those background tiles, and then that would make them, in theory, more readable. The About screen is just nothing but a socially distant logo because it's not implemented yet. Audio is audio. Nothing more to say about that. Gameplay, not implemented. Keybinds, not implemented. And then under mods, we have Content Manager, which is this is going to be for managing your save files and your custom terminal themes and all that stuff under here. And also mods, eventually, when we implement that. Anyway, let's look at the settings screen. That's going to be pretty handy. Anyway, I'm not sure if you guys want to see anything else, to be honest. I didn't really expect the terminal stuff to take that long, but I am happy that it's implemented. Now, this is a sneak peek, to be honest. My plan is to do these every week. Now, I've said that before. I know that. But I never really kept that promise because I've kind of been of the opinion that watching me program a game engine isn't exactly interesting. And when I started working on Socially Distant, it wasn't presentable like it is now. It had a lot of missing stuff, and even still it has missing stuff. But I didn't want to bore you guys by making you watch me implement the low-level, behind-the-scenes, not visual at all stuff. Whereas what we did just now was, sure, behind-the-scenes and pretty low-level, but we made the terminal work. we made the terminal actually show up on screen and use the new holder system. That's pretty handy. We even fixed the best command in the world. I mean, you can't have a hacking game without neofetch. You just can't. So I'm glad I got that fixed. But I want to do all this stuff, or I want to do more of— oh my god, I just realized how scuffed this pandemic icon is. It's all lopsided. Don't you see that? Oh my god, it's— oh. Why is it all lopsided? It looks jerker than me on a Saturday night. Anyway, I want to start doing these every week, because I want to take a feature in the game, and over the week work on the low-level boring stuff that you guys don't need to see. And then on the dev stream I can show you guys that stuff, but also work towards something visual. Like, I might not do the email system on stream, because that's something I want to do next, like, after this stream next. And I'm not going to do the loading system on stream, but maybe I'll do a file manager on stream, or a text editor, or something like that. Who knows? But anyway, let me know what you guys would like to see me develop in Socially Distant on stream. And I'll see if I can make that happen. But anyway, I've been Michael. As always, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned something, especially about why I hate singletons, and how to do singletons without doing singletons. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching me suffer a little bit, but also, you know, get something working in Socially Distant. Anyway, I'm Michael. Hope you guys are excited for what's to come. I'll see you guys in the next video, in the next live stream, depending on what happens. And if you're not on the Discord already, go ahead and join the Discord server. I know the webpage for it isn't exactly professional looking right now. It's kind of just says LOL, I'll do this later. Just click the link. But yeah, click the link, join the Discord server, and then, you know, you'll be notified when these streams happen. And you'll also be able to see Socially Distant as it's developed, without having to watch a live stream. But anyway, it's gonna do it. I'm gonna hit the button that ends the stream off soon. Let's do that on my laptop. Find it. Wow, is it ever zoomed in? Okay, that's where I want to be. Anyway, this was really fun for me. I'm really glad we got this all working. I want to do the hacking system again, or next soon, after the email system, that's for sure. But anyway, I'm Michael, I'll see you guys in the next stream, or in the next video. That's the third time I've said that, I think. And I will see you guys in the next one. Oh god, I closed the window that... give me a moment here. Maybe it won't end as soon as I thought. I accidentally closed the dashboard window on my laptop, and I can't click the big red button. But you guys have been awesome. I know that chat wasn't very active today. This was very impromptu. To be honest, I literally thought about it the moment I walked home from Tim's. This stream would not have happened if I didn't have that thought in the back of my head saying, I should do a dev stream. But I'm glad I did. Anyway, as I load up the live dashboard here. Content. And then we'll go live. Then we'll go to the currently active stream. Live dashboard. So yeah, that is gonna do it. Let's not click the wrong red button this time. Let's click the right red button. I'll see you guys on the Discord server. I'll see you guys on Tricks of Creative if you're from there, on LDP Union if you're from there. But in any case, I will see you guys in the next video.